Hello, my name is Nikita Grebnev, and this is the final report on the Data Analytics Project 8. Even though this is a group project, I'm doing it alone due to a set of unfortunate circumstances that led to both of my teammates being course. With me right now is Anthony McCann, the productivity manager of Dev Center House. Hello, Anthony.
Hello, Nikita. How are you?
Uh, well, I'm doing well, but I'm lagging behind on that GitHub integration that we were talking about.
Okay,
Um,
no problem.
Dev Center House is a software development company working primarily with B2B clients, engaging with other enterprises, and providing software engineering services in such spheres as CRM, client management, and project management. In this report, I will be covering the past 12 weeks I spent with this company. The first project they decided to involve me in is a prototype of their own UI web system, based primarily on Material UI and React.js. My responsibilities were to analyze the existing code of this project, plan for its restructuration into a library, design best practices involved in future development, and provide a set of tools that can be then taken from that library and implemented in different various projects within the company. The second project was exactly that implementation of the created UX libraries and instruments. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
And before that, I believe Adam was working on this project.
Yeah. So basically, what the project is was a template, uh, basically a template that we wanted to use for future projects. Again, was leading a group of the team to try build this database, and they did start, and then you came in and finished, which was great, and basically improved it, which was overall the objective. So from me, it was a super job.
Okay. Um, do I understand correctly that this project should have been my evaluation period, right?
Yes, so ideally this was the test phase, ideally 3 weeks, and that extended into potentially 5 weeks, 6 weeks,
I
and then there
believe
was
it
a
was, yeah, it was like a 6 weeks, and then there was a pause during which we were deciding project with.
yeah. So the objective was to try see where we could fit you in, but because we were so heavy at the moment, there wasn't an area that we could get you in to get the right support. So rather than putting you into a project where there'd be no support, I felt working on a project with me personally will give you the ideal support and the kind of freedom to work on something independently.
I'm sorry, I have some audio issue. Yeah, there was something interfering with my headphones. Do you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Oh yeah, I can hear you now as well because for some reason the audio shut off.
Okay.
So you were saying?
Yeah, so the overall objective was to have you placed into a project where you could get continuous support from the guys, but because the schedule was so heavy, we didn't have that to be able to put you into that kind of circumstance. And so what we did was we decided to put you into an individual project, which was to build a DCH portal for new staff being welcomed into the company that we could basically set up.
Okay, so I will cover this first project first. Yeah, I'm not good on camera. I will cover this first project first by the weeks. So it was supposed to be my evaluation, and before on something more important than all the UI code that you had on the back burner, I had to go over it. We discussed the ongoing affairs and the minor setback that we had with Monica that happened in week one, and the resolution of all the misunderstanding that ensued. And it was decided for me to complete the project of my own. Meanwhile, I was exploring the workflow of the company, check out the Kanban they have, that you were using ZHub and you're still using it. And basically, I got a good hang of what is expected of me. The week one finished with me being presented with the task of reviewing the code of this existing project. The goal of this review was to see if and how the existing code can be reused. I was excited to participate in the creation of a new React library eager to study the work that was done before me, but soon I met a huge disappointment. The person working before me apparently was tasked with just creating the operational page and not creating UI components. So it dawned on me that not only I'm tasked with creating a new component for a red project, but basically I have to rework everything that person done before me, assembling the code within the project and reassembling it back into my components before I could possibly start working on my own code. Week 2 was spent cleaning up the existing code. First, I needed to figure out why the project I was given launch, and then figure out why it wasn't launching like what it was supposed to. We had this deployment problem when different parts of the code would interfere with each other and cause issues with the stylization of the project, having different margins, gaps between. Um, this, of course, was caused by having different conflicting classes in the, and instead of putting all in separate files and implementing packages, get them separated into simplified and unique classes for each project for each component. We had done overlapping like a project-wide serialization class, and that was also a task for me to disassemble that and to assemble it back into all the separate files. Um, I implemented SAS. It's a stylizing system that implements exactly what I described above. It makes it easier to dynamically change the styles. And then I reported my findings and decisions to software development lead Agam Mishra and was given a green light to do whatever I want to the project. And that was great because I already had plans. Um, that began on week 3. I had parts of the project restructured and other planned for future restructuration. And it finally came to a point where the project could be tied to the endpoints of the API. This is where I found out that the endpoints and the event handling in general was implemented before in different separate event handling system on page. So instead of that, I had to create my own event handling system. I call it Superform. And basically, it just tied up to all the components and gathered the events that were happening to the components and reacted to them accordingly, like validating the forms or opening the dialog windows, everything like that. Any event that would happen, it would just store in its batch and then implement it one by one. I also continued cleaning up the loose code in the project and finally started creating separate files and folders for each reused component. Um, I informed both of you, you Anthony and Agam, of my findings and decisions back then. How do you think the state of the project is about a month after we started?
Yeah, now you could see a significant difference in the work that you've done compared to what was there in the first place. Feedback from Agam as well was really, really positive. Really happy with how you handled yourself, how you handled the implementation of what he asked you to do, and how you transitioned that into a working platform. So, from me, overall, really, really happy from Agam. Was ecstatic with the processes you put in place. So, full thumbs up from everybody. Well done.
I'm really glad to hear that. Once this platform was ready and once the existing code was re-implemented into those separate components that could act together in an event handling system, I basically had a platform to create new components, and that's what I started doing. I added more and more UI components. Some of them I added from previous projects of mine, just the already existing code that I had and that could be reworked in the system. Um, compatibility was not a big issue because I designed it from the start and I could redesign the components as they went. And now these components, they could be built on top of each other. They could have hierarchy, they could have inheritance, and basically that's object-oriented programming in a shell. By the end of that week, I had a working prototype of the library with a scope, event handling, and input components that could be used in any typical project. Your regular array of text boxes, selects, radio buttons, checkboxes, etc. And I started writing the how do you call it, the instructions how to use them. Because the Central House, it has on the repositories, it has a wiki that that can be written with consideration of how to create and how to employ those components. So I also created a few articles, 33 of them, and each article, it covers its own component, it covers the functions that component has, covers the parameters it takes, and it also gives simple examples of how to use component in various situations. Like, for example, you can use a button component on its own and tie it to some function, or you can use it with the existing event handling system. And it would send its events not to your function, but instead to the handling system, and that it would handle them. And it goes the same with all the inputs, all the dialogues. They all can work on its own, or they can work with the event handling. Reporting to DCH on week 5, I informed Agam and Anthony that the project is basically done, and all that's left is documentation and starting compiling this wiki with all those articles. Also, I created documentation within the project, going over each component and adding a README file. That would basically have the same information that we have on the wiki, so that anybody that downloads this repository and starts working on it, they don't need to rely on the wiki active. They can just have the documentation with the code itself. And that's what I found, I guess, the most useful out of the things I did, because it doesn't matter how much code do you write, it doesn't matter how much how useful your components are, unless other people can use them as well. And that's what I was aiming for in that first 5 weeks. I really hope you find uses for that, and we already have one, the welcome page that I'm
Yep.
creating right now, and I'm certain that there will be. What do you think?
Yeah, most definitely. Like the fact that you built all that in the background, you turned something that was a work in progress into something that now is a work in function, and then took what you built and what you tried to design into a real life program, as in the welcome page that we're trying to create. So you took what you've learned, what you changed, what you implemented, and put it into something that actually works.
The next 3 weeks, the process started to slow down because, well, documentation was basically done, all the testing was basically done. I'm still unhappy with how few of those components turned up, but I believe that they can be changed pretty easily, considering they have this modular system when you can see what is happening within each of those components. So if anybody wants to change that, they can. Um, I believe, in my understanding, I was supposed to be moved on the next project, sales engine for a Kurdistan cars company. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the plan was to move you across the Kurd Shopping, which is a shopping website we have in Kurdistan and Iraq. At the moment, we're in an onboarding position where we're constantly bringing in new people to try expand and create new ideas. And it just so happens that while you finished up on that project, we were in that transition and we couldn't bring you in to actually do any work.
Mhm.
Which is why we came up with the other solution was your own personal thing.
So is that like recurring problem with the interns, that you have more interns that you have projects?
No, it wouldn't be so much the interns. It'd be just because we're so busy at the moment with we finished up 3 or 4 different projects and we're in full mode now with the last 3. where it's at peak. So we wouldn't be in a position to bring an intern in onto that, which is what the issue was, because there's so much in-depth work going on, and the teams wouldn't have time then to give you guidance or help. So rather than put you in a situation where you'd be left on your own and could potentially make mistakes, that could be catastrophic, we decided to look at a different option for you.
So I continued the documentation and testing over that time, and over those 5 6 weeks, I was writing the reports for my college, and in those reports I also learned all the things that I did. I've written the Gantt charts, I've written the work list. Basically, used this system that evaluates the value that we cost for the company that we are interning with. Because like each 20 hours of our job is like $800 for the company, so you need to actually manage your time and not to overwork and not to have too much of the value taken from the company, like value in parentheses, because it's like imaginary. Um, yes, and this actually introduced me to a few concepts that I wasn't implementing my work before because I wasn't self-reporting. I always either had some supervisor that would take care of the Kanban and take care of the tasks, or I would be the supervisor and take care of the task for other people. And I didn't have much experience with self-reporting, so over those 3 months, having to write a report each week, it actually gets you to evaluate yourself more and get you to understand better the tasks that you're doing, because each week you have this retrospective of what have I done, what uses my work has, and what am I going to do next week. um, so it was really valuable for me as like a disciplining factor, because it let me see, oh, I'm slacking this week and I need to catch up next one, and I better have everything laid out and separated and work one by one my tasks. But by the week 9, I had a new project. It was an invitational page for the new employees of Dev Center House, designed specifically to introduce them to the company and to the work that they're going to be doing. Currently, it's on a prototype stage. The static pages are ready, and we are planning to make quite a few changes before it's ready to be used by the new employees. Like, for example, the GitHub integration and the integration of their existing. You cannot see it right now, but on my screen and on the recording, it should be clear. I'm showing right now this project, the static page that I made. And this whole project is created with implementation of the UI components that were created during 5 weeks, the event handling system, the everything. Everything is in this completely built within the capabilities of the company and can be changed easily because of all the documentation that we now have. Um, During week 9, I designed the application and the router, and basically planned all the pages of the application using a dashboarding application called Miro. You haven't used Miro before, haven't you?
Me, no.
It's really good. It's allows you to build really easy those prototypes and discard any useless things and add changes really easy. So yes, during week 10 I expanded on that design. I added the introduction wizard, and you had quite a few changes to it because you wanted to implement more of the steps that the employees would take, right?
Yeah, so it was to try break down from day one all the way through to uh, full induction as to what they could expect, what is asked of them, what they need to complete, any information or guidance that they need to seek, and then basically intro videos as well as to what each thing does, what each page does, what softwares we use. So it was trying to compile everything into the one place based on what you've already created from week one through to week 7 or 8, and then being able to implement that into a live working prototype, as you said. But that's where we are now. So it's taking everything that you've learned from week 1 to 7 or week 1 to 9, and then making something that actually functions. So yeah, super.
I also wanted to ask you, this company, Dev Center House, you said that you have a lot of projects that sometimes finish simultaneously, and you have to move employees between the projects. And how much time does it usually take for a new employee, a new recruit, to get a hang of all those company workflows and all those projects and start to actually, well, pull their weight? How long does it take?
You could be looking at roughly a month. It depends on every individual. Some individuals could step in on day one, and within a week or two, they're fully live, ready to work on a project. Some people will take about a month because they probably haven't used some softwares that we use, the likes of GitHub, ZenHub, stuff like that. So they'd have to learn all that first. They wouldn't know how to use the clock-in systems, the Harvey systems, so they'd have to research and learn those. And then with Gitbook as well, which is only new to the market recently. It's basically a new wiki, so they have to learn how to use that too. So it just depends on each person and what history they have.
I have to ask you also, have you used Confluence before? Have you tried that?
What's called?
Confluence.
No,
No? It's
no,
basically the same thing. It's used widely by the companies, and you basically
yeah.
like a tutorial for them. But yeah, do you expect this project, the Welcome project, to speed up this process?
Yes, it's not even to speed her up; it's to try to reduce human time because the time is so valuable. And if it takes, say, a week to introduce somebody, and you have to constantly have meetings, like it's taken away from the productivity of the company. So this is to make things more productive, a bit more steady, and that way, once they finish their introduction package, whether it be a week long, depending on how long it takes them to go through all the material, it saves that's a week of work saved for one person.
Yeah, and I also believe that would increase their, it would make them more autonomous
Yeah, so
because, yeah,
they can go away
often,
themselves and be basically independent and learn and take their time, as much time as they need, till they understand everything, regardless of what's on there. So if it's a case that they only need a quick refresher, like they've used before, but they'd like to have a look through a video or two, or they want to do a full program and look through every video, or even do further research on those different areas, they could. So it's at their own pace. Like nobody's being rushed through. It's ideally for them to get an understanding as to everything that we do, all the softwares that we use, and how they need to use it to impact their role.
well, I do hope it helps them. I do. And the
They will.
autonomy problem is actually really hard with a lot of younger people that only start working in, because they don't know yet the actual workflow that they're supposed to be doing, and so they look for mentors, they look for other older employees of the company to guide them, and those older employees, they have their own projects. They don't have spare time to educate people, so this autonomy, I think, is going to be great.
Yeah, especially when it is up and live. Like it'll save a lot of hassle. It means that the people that come on board can that work at their own pace, and then when they're ready for the mentor to step in, we can introduce that rather than the mentor being there from day one and eating up hours that are really valuable. This is probably the best solution for the company.
Well, unfortunately, currently I'm running about a week late. I was planning to have the GitHub integration ready by this time, but I have a lot of projects on Jordan College, and I I'm going to confess I kind of put it on a back burner right now, but I'm going to at least try to make it work. Um, Also, the expanded profile page was supposed to be ready this week, and it's not ready yet. Um, I couldn't just manage my time well enough to get it done. Even though this is bad news, I'm quite confident in the project itself, and I see its potential, and I'm sure that the required modification to it shouldn't take too much time. And I have to say, Anthony, I'm grateful for this experience because it allowed me to gain confidence in working overseas. It's the first foreign company that I worked with, and it provided me a wider view on the workflow of foreign companies. It turns out that people are people and business is business, and it flows pretty much the same way no matter what country you're in. And I feel like this is especially true with Kanban and Agile because it's the same thing every company uses now. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, 100%. Like realistically, it doesn't matter what kind of industry it is. They all have the same systems and the same flows. They may all work differently, but it's the same strategic plan, like and the same strategic goal. And it doesn't change regardless whether you're in software or retail.
And this internship also provided me new experience, allowing to utilize the organizational and time management techniques I learned at Georgian and test them in action. As I said, it disciplined me better and it allowed me to have a retrospective over my work last week. It's really great to understand what role you have and what is expected of you. And those techniques, they help you understand that. Well, what are your future plans right now for the system that I was involved with building and with? Well, we already covered what's the plans for the welcome page, but what do you have any plans for the UI system?
Yeah, so the overall idea for the UI system is the same. It'd be from a productivity point of view to save people having to build stuff from scratch. That there's a system in place where they can pull templates or they can review what others have done and implement that. So it's like more so a productivity tool, but at the same time, it's to have a set standard and structure in place that we use in every project that we work on. That we're not taking on projects and trying to implement things that we know aren't going to work, where these have been tried and tested and we know they will work.
I really hope that I helped increase at least a little bit the efficiency, and
Yeah,
I'm
most
glad for
definitely.
the time I spent here.
And we're very grateful for having you because we wouldn't have had the opportunity to complete what we've completed if you weren't on board. So you deserve the recognition for that. And you should be very proud of yourself of what you achieved in the few
Thank
weeks
you,
that you were with us.
thank you, and I'm also really grateful to have the opportunity to work. Do you have any questions? Anything you wanted to like to add?
No, I've no questions. The only thing I would have is we had some issues last time around in regards to time differences and time management. How did you find it?
How did I find what?
How did you find the time management in regards
Oh,
to the Irish and Canadian times?
absolutely terrible, abysmal. It was horrible time. I had to wake up at 6 a.m. It was dreadful. It was fine. It was completely fine.
And in
I
regards to team response as well, and during those times,
oh,
how was that?
I think you have wonderful people, and I think you have wonderful specialists on the team, and I haven't had any problem communicating with them, and haven't had any problem getting answers that I need, um, feedback that I need.
Good, good. Glad to hear it.
I really hope the next team of college students that you get will have the same treatment and will be able to engage with your company really quickly. Because I've had experience with other teams and I've talked to other students. It's like week 8 and they're starting to get a hang of what they were supposed to be doing. So you're
Yeah,
two
and
months in and you're
that's
only
something that you
started.
should be proud of because we have had that in the past where it took 8 weeks for somebody to learn something. Where from day one You stepped in and you threw your ideas into the pot and said, okay, no, this is what I think should happen. And you went and you made it happen.
Stop it, you.
No,
Stop it.
realistically, that's what it is. Like we've saved 8 weeks of productive learning for yourself because you've already had a previous experience in it, and you were able to step in and actually implement stuff, which is really, really good.
But I
So
feel like
from
that
that perspective, it's
students,
really good.
I feel like students that take a long time to get a hang of the work that they're supposed to be doing, they're shooting themselves in the leg. But it's their time as well that they could
Yeah.
be spending productively. Well, on that note, I think we can sign off. It was Nikita Grebnev for Group 8 at Data Analytics Project for Trojan Code. Thank you. And
Thanks,
thank you,
Nikita.
Anthony.
No problem at all.
Well, I think I will see you around.
See you soon.
See you soon.